Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Sorry, I kicked a bag and I was trying to figure out what it was in my office because I've been out of my office for a little bit trying to work on some other stuff. And anyway, so I digress. So what's been going on in the 2A? Well, the same stuff. The legal process, as we love it, is going on, and we're actually making a lot of headway. It looks like Chevron's going to be a good thing for us, like we all predicted. The pistol brace rule has been summarily defeated yet again, this time on a repeal. Or not a repeal, an appeal, that is. Promise I haven't had anything to drink yet. The funny thing about what's going on in politics is that you have a group of people on both sides that have forgotten what has happened to us during COVID. And I don't understand how you could be a living witness of what happened to us, what the government did to us, and how we have all forgotten that under Biden and Trump, we had some very bad things done to us because of a virus that turned out to be no more worse than a cold. A very bad cold, nonetheless, but still a cold. You have one side of the camp, and I'm not going to get into either side because I personally am repulsed by both. Because one side, while he says he's a 2A advocate now, he's the reason why we're fighting so hard to keep things like pistol braces alive. And the other side has outright said that they want to ban stuff. They've also said that they wanted to do price regulations, which is outright communist, and I'm opposed to communism in any form at all. But I had a very good conversation with one of my good friends. He's become a very good friend of mine. You know, I look up to him. I look forward to seeing him, and he's a gun guy like I am. And he was all jazzed about, what Ruger's coming out with. So he's a big fan of the Model 1, I think it is, or the Mark 1, whichever one it is. It's a lever action brake that they have made from back in the day. And he's looking at getting one of the anniversary editions if he can ever afford it. And we opened it up to my church group saying, hey, maybe we should take up a collection to get my friend one of these. And the verdict's still out, so maybe we can get that happening to him. But what was interesting was his caliber choice. You can tell he was raised by people like me and my dad specifically, because he chose a caliber that I'm in love with, a .257 Roberts. I've never shot one. I've never got to own one, but ballistically it is amazing. It was the predecessor to, I think, the 25-06. It's a very cool caliber. But it made me think about all the fun stuff that's going on. Task and Purpose put out a video today, a short, talking about what the feedback has been from the U.S. Army from the XM7 project. And the Army's big psyched about the division anyway that got it, is big psyched about its lethality, its accuracy. They're not a fan of the weight. And someone has forgotten that in 2024, there's no free lunch in physics. Anything that has a spicy caliber like the 277 Fury or the 6.5 by 51 that they're chambering it in, especially with 85,000 cup pressure at the bolt, it's going to have to be a beefy, heavy gun. Go back and look at like the G3 or the FAL or the M14. You're using a caliber that has a little more pep to it with modern ballistics and modern bullets. It's gonna be heavy. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that people would be complaining about this, knowing that they're going to this caliber choice anyway. Anytime you upsize a gun, there are benefits, but there's also negatives. And one of the negatives with caliber choice specifically, whether it's an AR-10 or a FAL or anything else, is you're going to have to deal with the weight that the gun is going to have to make up for the caliber. A 308 is not a little gun. It is not a little caliber. It's a full-powered cartridge. So it's not going to be as light as, say, a 5.56 of any vein. And the same thing can be said about Kalashnikov. A lot of people look at the Model 77 coming out, or the Model 76 or the Model 7. Yeah, it's Model 76 and Model 77. One of them's a K98 or 8mm Mauser. The other one's a 308. They're coming out of Yugoslavia, so these are AKs in rifle calibers, and they're looking at them like, well, this is the analog. I get an AK or a PSL even, and they think that they're getting this caliber in a full rifle cartridge, and it's going to be a light rifle. There's no way. You have to think about bullet mass, or the mass of the bolt carrier that's going to be able to resist the caliber, the recoil, and all the internal workings when the gun goes off, and what you're going to have to trade off. You cannot use lightweight aluminum in a lot of cases, except for frames some places, and a lot of those frames are reinforced with chrome molybdenum, especially in the XM7, to deal with the recoil. Okay, with a bigger caliber comes more recoil, comes more wear and tear on the action, because there's more violent action happening inside the action when the gun goes off. There is no free lunch in physics or in the 2A. So I understand why the gun is as heavy as it is. I also understand that you can't take a gun like that, put optics on it, and expect it to be a lightweight Svetla little thing. It's going to be a chunky little gun, and that's by design. The reason why you can penetrate body armor at 600 meters with that particular caliber is because of what that velocity does, because of that spicier round. So I think back about the other innovations. So the Bodyguard 380 specifically. I already have an LCP Max. I will say this about the Max after looking at mine and cleaning it very detailed this weekend. I realized that its finish, the bluing finish, I understand why the bluing's there. It's to keep costs down, and it's to finish the metal. However, it appears that Ruger's using like Sharpie or something, because it's not the best quality of bluing that I know Ruger can do. And that being said, it's a wear and tear item for me anyway, because I carry it. I expect it to have holster wear. I expect it to wear on certain places because, well, it's a use gun. It's not a safe queen. This gun is usually on my person when I'm not at work, because it is my concealed carry option for deep concealment. And I can say the same thing about my Glock 19. My Glock 19, you can tell, has been used. It's been carried. I've trained with it. I train with all of my guns that I'm going to use in that type of use case. I don't know what else to put it as. In that scenario, if it ever happens, that's the better case, I guess, a better word usage, is in that scenario, you train to the lowest level you possibly can, or the highest level you can, so that when your brain G-locks and you actually start losing those higher functions, that you know what to do. I'm one of those idiots, I told you this time and time again, where I take my contacts out. I've even been caught training on the range in my boxers with my contacts out, because I want to fight like I'm going to have to, I imagine, when it happens. I don't suspect someone's going to announce before they come into my house in the middle of the night, and I'm going to have enough time to get my rifle, put my contacts in, and be ready to go to work if I need to. I need to be ready to fight however it is. So whether I have my contacts in or I don't, that's a blessing or not, I need to be able to fight. So that's why you'll see my gun, my bedside rifle, has optics, because even without contacts, I can use the optics and see better with it than I could without it. Now my pistol. I don't use red dots. I have a habit, and it's a personal training habit with mine, that I've shot red dot pistols, and I end up following the dot more than I need to follow it for just using. And what I mean is I'm chasing the dot where the target is more so than I am actually just naturally pointing and using the dot as a reference point to where the bullet's going to go. I'm much better with irons when it comes to pistols in those pistol ranges anyway, even without my contacts. Not going to get the precision award when it comes to pistol. And when I say precision, to me, a 4-inch disc is about as good as I need to get, so I don't train to the super high level to where I'm going to put 3 rounds inside of an inch, where I would with a rifle at 100 yards or, 500 yards. That, to me, is what I train with or train up to when I shoot with a rifle. My rough use guns, my AR-15, my Kalashnikovs, the standard for that for training for me is usually if I can hit an IPSC 18-inch target at 500 meters consistently, and I can hear the bell ring, meaning that I use metal targets so that I can hear it ding when I'm hitting. That's the gold standard for me, because I don't foresee me being super accurate in that type of situation or having to be. I can be. I can definitely stack 4 or 5 rounds inside of a dollar or a $50 piece at 500 yards, and I've trained to that. But when you're running, like I have been lately, trying to get up to where I can run 25 meters, or not 25, run 75 meters and do 20 push-ups, that is a personal goal I'm trying to do. And what I've noticed is that breathing after you've ran and done that, when you've gotten your heart rate up, is a lot harder to do. So I'm not as accurate, meaning that 18-inch target becomes best case for me at 500 yards or 500 meters, 550 yards. At 100 yards, it's pretty consistent, but it's not as consistent as I would like. That's what I'm training to. There will be video eventually when I feel comfortable enough that I can swap into my body armor and do the same thing with my AR-15 that I can with my Kalashnikov. The only reason why I want to do this is it's a part of the workout routine I've been doing, is called the Gospel of Violence. In that, Sonny Pazikis, he goes off on this tirade about running 75 meters and doing 20 push-ups, and then use a firearm and see how you do. And my son brought up the point that, hey, Dad, you should do this if you're doing this workout, because he makes a very good point. And I started trying to get there. And I still have a long ways to go. I am a bigger guy. If you guys have not seen me in real life, most of you guys that listen to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union have seen me in real life. You know I'm a bigger guy. Running is not my strong suit. Doing push-ups when you've had a broken wrist is not my strong suit. But I'm getting there. And that's the best I can say, is that it's a work in progress. I'll keep going. I will update you as I get there. What else has been going on, in the world? I have been really glued to, I've checked out of the news about a year or two ago. But I mentioned this before in this podcast. I did it because it wasn't good for me. Absorbing all this content all the time made me really anxious for no reason. Because there's a lot of things you cannot do anything about no matter what you do. You can only vote a certain way, and you can only vote so much, so there's nothing you can do. There's a point in time where you're going to have to put your faith in a higher power and other people to do what they're supposed to do. And if you are obsessed about the news, like I was, that comes from my dad. My dad was a person that's how him and I bonded. We used to watch the news, and it was kind of a weird way for me to travel around the world and see the happenings of the world and kind of imagine what it was like there. Some of it war stuff, some of it not, just kind of how I see myself and how I was raised. But I noticed that during COVID specifically, that I started obsessing about what the news was saying, so much so that I started paying attention really, really well. And that's when I noticed that Operation Mockingbird type thing, where you could change the channel from one channel to another, and you could literally have them complete each other's sentences. And that's when I started looking at alternative media. And that's when I got into Tim Pool, and I got into Joe Rogan, and I got into a ton of other stuff. Because during the COVID stuff, you couldn't really go out and do stuff, so we kind of stuck here. And at the time, I was trying to spin up some things for the school I was working for online, so I was on my computer most of the day. And what I noticed after COVID ended, and I started getting back into the world, getting in the vibe of what we do as humans and getting back interacting with people, is that I was really well informed, but I was too passionate about some things that really don't matter. Case in point, let's look at the election that's coming up. There's a lot of people that say this is the election that will end the country if it doesn't go one way or another. The fact of the matter is, after 46 years, I have learned that it doesn't matter who wins nationally. It matters more locally, because nationally, I've lived under both Obama, the Clintons, the Bushes, the Trumps. Nothing's really changed, not at the national level. The country's a little more divided, I would say, because of culture war issues. And I think those culture war issues could be fixed a lot if we actually just came together and started talking again, because I think we have a hell of a lot more in common than we don't. And I think that if we were able to talk to one another head to head with and be civil at doing that, that maybe we would see the ridiculousness of both sides and come to a conclusion that these guys shouldn't be representing us. And that's kind of where I've been for a while, and that's where I've kind of given up. I've toiled on what I was going to start talking about on New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union, because I don't keep as plugged in as I used to. I still keep abreast of the issues that matter to the 2A. But let's be honest, don't you get tired of hearing that we're losing this or we're gaining this or that we're winning these court cases time and time again, but there's really no action that's happening from it? And I think that's a symptom of our national discussion about politics right now. It's the same thing, is that you see a group of people that are supposed to be on our side are the ones that are selling us out and using this as a wedge issue to keep strife going, so that they're saying these guys won't vote this way, and they are going to take away your rights, when the reality is the federal government doesn't have the manpower, period. Even if they activated every soldier, Marine, airman that they had and gave them to the federal government 100% like the FBI, and they went door to door to start trying to collect the 450 million guns in the United States, it would ruffle feathers. One, you would see people like me outright rebel, but you would also see people that aren't pro-2A start coming to our side, because anytime the government is super heavy-handed, and you see it in living color, is when you start seeing those seeds of doubt that the government's going to do anything. And that happened for me during COVID. That's when I realized the government is not going to save us. We're going to save ourselves, or a higher power is going to do it, because there's absolutely no way that the government is competent enough, given what we've lived through COVID and what we've lived through in the last 10, 15 years. You cannot honestly say that the federal government in any way should be trusted with 100% of every bit of power they've been given. And it's time to take some of that back. And a lot of us in the 2A, we've been talking about this for a long time. And there's a lot of dudes that are starting to say, well, Civil War, you hear Tim Pool talk about it all the time. I honestly still don't see a Civil War. And the reason why is kind of funny. It's because people are complacent. Being so well informed as I am, and I'm patting myself on the back here, and a lot of guys will tell you I'm full of crap anyway, but I was well aware of that the state of New Mexico had up to birth abortions. Now, I brought this up to many people. I told them, hey, I'm there for gun stuff, but this is getting passed through. Sanitary napkins, lady sanitary napkins being put in every boy's bathroom in the school system was a state thing that was being passed back then and being talked about. And I raised it then. Having hideouts where kids can come, change their clothes, and assume the opposite gender of what they are. That was talk back then. And I talked to people, and now I'm seeing people at churches coming to pass, what are they called? Where you sign. They're passing these petitions. There we go. They're passing these petitions around to get these laws repealed. And I'm like, where the hell were you when these were being passed? So I stand firmly in saying, while I am an evangelical Christian, that they are probably the worst group of voters to actually get out and make their voice heard. Otherwise, the election system would probably be a lot different than what it has been. A lot of them will say that they do vote. I doubt it. because if it was the case, the polling right now would reflect that Kamala Harris has no chance in hell, because her big push right now is abortion, and that is a hard no from evangelicals. So I can see that if she is actually polling as high, that they have not risen and have not spoken up, and they probably won't vote again. And we're liable to end up with Kamala Harris, because there's a lot of people that absolutely hate Trump. Whether they like his policies or not, they despise the man himself. I have gotten over myself. And while I fully do not expect Trump anything better from Trump than you would get Harris, I do suspect that he's going to go a little hard and maybe cut down on the government a little. And the fact that he chose J.D. Vance as his running mate, who is a pro-2A advocate in every way possible, kind of signed the deal for me. So I'm not looking at the communist third-party libertarian candidate, because there's no way in hell I'm voting for a communist who actually is for communism. And after Kamala Harris's little rant about banning the AR-15 because it was used against Trump, even though Trump's not worried about banning the AR-15. And then she came out and said she was for price fixing. You know, any society that has ever done price fixing at some point, it's a socialist, communist type thing. It usually leads to the downfall of the country. It's not a good thing, and any one of the young kids that think this is a grand plan right now needs to look really hard at history. You know, there's a reason why history is kind of unforgiving. You see it time and time again where people put out something, do something. It's been tried before. Don't do it. You know, that's the same thing that happens in the 2A. You see all the old Flex was intermediate cartridge. Everything was intermediate cartridge. Then you don't need those heavier rounds. There's no purpose for it. You need a 5.56, and that's all you need. And then you fast forward, 10, 15 years, and now we're all looking at battle rifles again. And we're looking at our daddy's collection and going, maybe dad had some thought process here, and, maybe there was a reason for these older rifles. And that's where I've been a long time. I've said this before, that if I was going to run away, if I had to CASEVAC myself and save myself, the one rifle I would probably take would be a 308. I'm not saying those other ones wouldn't be in the truck. I'm saying that the one rifle that I know I can put food on the table and that never has failed and that I'm actually a very good shot with is probably the rifle I'm going to use. And the same thing goes for pistols. And that's where my Glocks and my LCP Max come into play. Is, there's a lot of guys that all they do is collect. They buy all these toys and they don't actually put them to use. I'm one of those weird exceptions to that rule. I shoot, and I put them through their paces to make sure they're going to do what their job is when the time's right, whether I'm hunting or whether it's that really bad case scenario. I train to that level, and I think we all should. So that's basically what I had to cover tonight, and tomorrow I'm going to try to get better and put more of these out than one a week, because I enjoy it. It's just I've been really trying to stay away from the news, and to that end I've been trying to limit my intake on the negative because it just hurts me, and I obsess about something that I really don't have any control over. And in the 2A, I'm 46 years old. I remember when I could go into a gun store in 1986 because I remember my dad taking me there, and they had machine guns hanging on the wall that you could have walked out with that day. And now we can't have that because of a Republican president named Ronald Reagan. It doesn't matter the party. It matters on what time they decide to take away your rights. Right now, Glenn Beck, I'm a fan of Glenn Beck. He's one of the reasons why I tried to do podcasting anyway, just because it was my way of getting out the word for the 2A. He's been censored on YouTube. And you have to ask yourself, where is that line? You know, I've mentioned this on this podcast before. Where's the line where you actually start waking up and saying, hey, they're trying to strip away our rights? And when I say they, I mean the federal government, the powers that are at B, that are running the federal government, whatever it is, they are stripping our rights. And whether it's your right to assemble, like they did during COVID, your right to free speech because other people get pissed off nowadays because you misgendered someone, or you just said something off the cuff and it was taken by those alphabet people that it wasn't correct and right, or you have someone censoring you because you talk to someone you're not supposed to, you know, someone who's on the outside of society, so to speak, nowadays. That's not where our country was supposed to go. And I fully understand why people are talking about civil war. I just don't think they have the stones to get up and do it, because they won't even get out and go vote. You know, this all could have been fixed a long time ago, but we keep fighting over stupid things like which bathroom someone can use and whether or not we're going to fund war endlessly with American tax money. You know, the reality is that funding war just makes Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all the military-industrial complex richer. It hasn't helped inflation. You know, anyone that doesn't go vote, or even if you do vote, I think you should go fill up your gas tank, go buy groceries, and then go vote and see where you land. Because if you still vote the same after doing that, you're not paying attention to what's going on in the world. Because that's what really matters, is can you keep food on the table? Do you even have a chance to buy a house nowadays? Because, you know, the economy's not doing as great as it once was. And why is that? And that's something we have to all do some hard, cold soul searching and ask ourselves. You know, I'm blessed to be where I'm at. I look forward to, I've got the promotion. I don't know, I have a start date. So that's the thing I'm waiting on right now. I'm in hurry up and wait mode again. But I wait patiently because I know someone's on my side. Like, share, subscribe, most importantly, be great. And I hope you guys have an amazing day.